And I'm back for the first update on my 50 pages a day reading challenge for the month of February. 1984 was the book that I started with, and I was reading Aldous Huxley, Brave New World. Everyone kept telling me, you gotta read this next, and so I did, and damn, there was nothing that could have prepared me for this. Like, I remember enjoying like this book, just reading a really nice story of a really fucked up world, right? Of a really fucked up political system, and once he gets arrested, damn, there was nothing that could have prepared me for that. That was tough, that was brutal. I was really not expecting that. And as for the political system, I'm not gonna explain it to you in detail, but they have like 3 different social classes, and I thought it was like really interesting that there was a lot of investment on the 2 upper social classes in terms of control over several devices that I'm not gonna tell you, but yeah, you have to read for it. And just a really, really complex system to make sure that no one would oppose the government. But in the other hand, what I found like really shocking, and it's just that's exactly how it works and happens in our world like right now, is the lower class. It's just there's no sort of control. They're the only ones who are able to live free. Why? Because they make sure that that class can only live with enough money to survive. That's it. They're just kept with just enough money so they can survive. Actually, there's a really nice sentence I have. In principle, the war effort is always so planned as to eat up any surplus that might exist after meeting the bare needs of the population. That is, like, the world is divided in 3 regions, and they're constantly in war between each other. And they don't mean to conquer anything. Like, it's always the same areas that are being conquered and reconquered by the same regions over and over again. Like, no principal major city is ever conquered. It's always those areas in between that the only purpose of it is not to conquer anything, but to just make sure that any surplus that they might be producing is wasted, so that they don't have enough ease to care about stuff like education or reading or just knowing more or revolution. That's the main point, right? It's just keep them as ignorant and as poor as they can be, so they can survive, but not have enough time or education or knowledge to know better, to want to have better. Those who control the past control the future, and those who control the present control the past. That's a really present idea in this book, and you can see like throughout the book, there's this huge section of the government that exists only to control and erase the past, or to not just to erase the past, but to actually change it. They would go to every book, every magazine, every journal, and they would not only erase what was not convenient, they would change it to what was convenient. So throughout the book, they were all the time in war with another country, and it was convenient at one point that all those years of war, it was not against that A country, it was against B country. So they just erased the whole records about it and replaced them with new books and new journals, new magazines that changed the information to what was convenient to them. And that's kind of an exaggerated way of what's actually happening to us, the control that we have through media, for instance. Since I had already read David Copperfield by Charles Dickens, I thought I want to try another thing, so I tried Great Expectations by Dickens. And I read like 20 pages, and I was afraid that maybe I'm not going to enjoy it as much, because I just loved David Copperfield so much. Like, I loved it a lot. Like, one of the best books I've ever read. I just felt like I was reading Harry Potter all over again, except like better in every sense, and just real world, not fantasy world. So I had like a lot of expectations for this Great Expectation, right? And I read like 20 pages, and I knew I was gonna love it. And I did. I loved it till the end, and probably I would say I loved it even more than David Copperfield. So for the two novels of Charles Dickens that I've read, by far this is my favorite one, and maybe one of the best books I've ever read. I just totally loved it. In this one, it was not as straightforward. As usual, the characters are just sometimes hilarious, other times just really, really superbly written, and some seemingly irrelevant bits of a story all come up in the end to this just dramatic conclusion that is just the storytelling on this one is mind-blowing. Seriously, I love this. It's 5 out of 5, 11 out of 10. I can't even read it. Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. Oh, and next, what I read next. Dostoyevsky, The Idiot. How can I start? So 3 years ago, I was in just this huge spree of reading. I was reading everything. I read every work that Kafka ever wrote. I started reading Nabokov, Gogol, and finally I read Dostoevsky. I read some short stories that I was loving, and I thought I want to read a novel. So I had this at home, and I thought, well, I'm gonna give it a try. So 3 years ago, I was reading this, and there comes a part where you're introduced to this character who's a douchebag. There's no other way to put it. And he's dying. He has like 3 weeks to leave, and he's at this party, and he decides to read his before death letter. And it's like, I don't know if it was 100 pages, maybe I'm exaggerating, but it was just a really long letter that he wrote before dying, and everything that he thought about life and about everything else around him. And I just hated it so much. I just couldn't read. I just had this huge reading slump because of this book. I just stopped reading altogether because I don't like to leave a book midway. I like to go with it through the end. So I just didn't want to read it. So for like, I don't know, half a year, I didn't touch any book at all because of this. So 3 years later, I thought, well, now maybe it will be a good chance to pick it up again, because I'm with a nice pace, 50 pages every day. It was like I had 200 pages left on this book now, and yeah, I'll do it in 4 days, which I ended up doing like in 3 days. And at some point I was actually enjoying it. This book is like a soap opera. The characters are just brilliant, really good, but it's all about this guy that has like absolute kindness and forgiveness and no sort of hard feelings towards anyone, regardless of the situations, like to the limit. Like you will not understand how true what I'm saying is until you actually read this. Even though he seems like perfect in everything that is related to the heart and feelings and forgiving and loving, it just doesn't have, because of that perfection, it doesn't have like social integrity. That's probably the best way I could describe it. Because of that, the story starts going in a direction that you totally don't want it to go, and doesn't make any sense to us normal human beings, and it isn't done out of hate, it's done out of love, and yet it's something that's gonna cause you repulse. I think that's what caused me the most repulse. It was the ending, like right before the ending, I was starting to enjoy, and there was this character that he falls in love with, and she's a very naive and shy character, and I can't even. You have to read this. It will be like a kick in the nuts. But what the main character does to all these people around him is not out of hate or lack of consideration. Not at all. It's out of love for every human being at the same time, which can happen like in the society we live. So in a way, it was a really interesting book to read, but it was really frustrating. Yeah, recommend it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And today I started reading Animal Farm by George Orwell. So it's gonna be my second Orwell book this month. Looking forward. This seems to be about animal revolution. They live in a farm, and apparently the pigs are the smarter animals, and I'm kind of starting to see a tendency that they start wrecking the profits of the animal works a little bit more towards themselves. And it's supposed to be a political critique, and really interesting so far. On screen you can see the day of the month and the book and the number of pages I've read. And as you can see, throughout Charles Dickens' Great Expectations, I had quite a few days where I read exactly just 50 pages. And it was not because I was not finding interesting, or I wanted to turn every single page, but in many of the days it was just like 2 a.m. and I was finishing the last of the 50 pages, and I was just exhausted and I had to sleep, because if you don't sleep, I just can't read. I can't. I just lose focus. I read one paragraph and my eyes are closing, or I just can't focus at all. That plus daily workouts that I've been doing, I really can't afford not sleeping well, so I'm trying to go to bed early every day. And yeah, that's it for it now. It's like 13 days in, right? I might do another update in like another 13 days and make it, I don't know, three videos. I'll do a last video reviewing everything and how it went. So thanks for watching.